Hello.
I love our new intro.
I love it too.
So cute.
How are you doing today?
I am fantastic. And how are you? It's freezing here, but it's
I
good.
know. Let me organize this. It's freezing here too. It's 4 degrees.
Yeah, it's 10 below, and I live in the southish of the United States, so we're not used to this. It's not.
Okay. No, in my case, I was even looking into Canada. Say, oh my God, today is colder than Canada.
Yeah.
And I'm in the basement. So it feels colder. So you see me already covered.
Yep, big fluffy sweater for me too. I mean, I used to live in North Dakota, so this is nothing compared to that, but I do not live in North Dakota anymore. Shout out to all my North Dakota peeps. But and part of it was because of the freezing weather. I couldn't do it anymore. It was miserable.
It's hard, but it's winter. Yeah.
This is true.
Yes.
This is true.
So welcome everybody. My name is Indira. I'm your leadership coach. Welcome to Find Your Wise podcast.
Yes, and I'm Yvonne. I'm a financial life coach. So I have a question for you, Indira.
Okay.
What is your first reaction to change? You like scared? What's your first reaction?
I have a positive way of seeing change most of my life. Because of the history of how I have embraced change in terms of growth. And I always think it's going to be better.
So does it matter then if the choice to change is your choice or if the choice is not your choice? If change is just forced upon you, you still look at it always positively?
It matters a lot.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
Yes. When I made the decision, and that's one of very important, when I made the decision that the change that I wanted to do, I pay attention with all the variables. When someone else put the decision towards me, it takes me some time for me to assimilate it and take it in a positive way. An example, I remember being fired for a job when I was early in my career. And that first time that happened, I was devastated. And my mom told me, hey, it was not because of your fault. It was not because of your job. The company reduced because they're downsizing. So you have to put things into perspective. And that helped me take it from a different perspective. And I think my mother, especially when I'm in a difficult transition of change, she have always put me down and give me a little bit of reality and consider what's important. What about you?
It really depends. And for those of you that are out there, in case you haven't realized, today's topic is change. It's basically how to deal with change and, make the best of it because it's the new year and we're all trying to make some changes. And sometimes we get resistant to the change. For me, I'm kind of the same way. If it's been forced upon me, a lot of times it's what is happening. And you get that kind of shock, you get over that and stuff. But I'm the same way. I've been told by other people that I am the type of person that looks for the silver lining. And I realize that is true. I really do try to make the best out of situations. Sometimes it's really good. Sometimes I annoy people with it because they're like, can't you just be upset about this? And I can, and I do.
Yeah.
But I always try to end up, finding the best out of the situation because why be miserable,
Yes. Yeah. And I think a very important thing about this is the story that you tell to yourself.
Yes.
About that change, the connection and also the emotional part that you have in that. And I think as important is being how you have been your history in changes. For example, it's not the same me that I have been making different transitions in life, different changes. Some of them are a little bit drastic, but I have had a success result. So my perspective towards change is completely different for someone that have made different decisions and the results were not as beneficial. So I think that's part of why maybe I say it that way, because I'm being blessed for the decisions I have made, that it's been positive outcome in most cases.
Good. I'm the same way. And a lot of times it's because even if things aren't going quite the way I want them to, I either push through or I find a new way of doing it, so that I can make the best out of what's happening to me. And I know that's something that happens to a lot of people is that they're afraid to make the change because they're afraid of what they have to give up instead of what they're going to gain. And so a lot of it is really a mindset. And we deal so much with mindset in our coaching practices because most of anything that we're doing with somebody is to invoke change in them. That's what they're looking for, is some improvement. So it's really easy to get stuck on, but I don't want to let this go. Sometimes you have to let things go in order to have the better change.
Yes. And I always, now that you mentioned that perspective.
Somebody's at my front door. I get a lot of deliveries while we're doing this. Sorry. In case you heard it.
I was going to say, it's so important, the perspective, because like you mentioned, it's not that the things go always your way.
Right.
But it's also how you face those changes and those type of little nuances, how you adapt. And I was going to say, for example, seeing the change in terms of growth, that helps you to see that you're learning, it's a progress. And that really helped in the perspective about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it is, again, mindset. And it's funny because I know that the more that we do these episodes in the podcast is that there's so much from each podcast that we can bring to each one. Like one aspect of this is facing change. Like we talk about reaching goals or changing habits. A huge part of doing that is taking it step by step, little by little, piece by piece. Instead of being overwhelmed by the whole big picture of it, break it down, and if it means even accepting it in little pieces,
Yes. You said something that is important. I'm always trying to see if
that's all right.
Because I was going to ask you, why do you think change is so hard for people to face it?
I think it's different for everybody. Some people are just so ingrained in routine that any change in that is very difficult. A lot of it is cognition. There are people, if you're on the spectrum at all, routine is super, super important. And then for somebody like myself who has ADHD, we love routine. It keeps us in shape, but we hate restriction. And so we're constantly fighting that, restrictiveness of a routine that you need when you're making change. Because if you're making a change, you can look at it as making a habit, reaching a goal or something like that. You do have to have some routine in there. And so, it's hard if you're comfortable in what's happening. Change doesn't always feel welcome. And I think it's harder for people if that change is thrust upon them instead of them deciding to make that change. Because I tend to have a little bit of a rebellious streak when it comes to that. And I know a lot of people do. Yeah. So it really, really does depend on how the change comes to you. Like I said, I still try to make it positive, but sometimes I'm kind of bucking it.
Yeah, you said something very important. I'm going to be a very silly example. Just this morning, I was making pancakes for the kids. And at this time, I decided that I wanted to put some apples. So at moments, I will mash the apple so it's in the pancakes. This one, I was a little lazy. I mash it. Okay. And I put it just in little pieces. When they taste it, they say, wow, that is so bad. What do you put? I said, apple. Why do you do that? All of them had apple? I said, yes, all of them. This is disgusting. I said, okay, those are the ones. We have to eat it. And then they start eating. Then the third pancake said, oh, it's that bad. You know what happened? He said, Mom, next time at least let us know that you put something. I didn't prepare them.
So what was the expectation?
Okay. Exactly. And sometimes that happens. And happens in a regular life. When we make changes, even for ourselves or someone else, we have to set the expectations, what we wanted to accomplish with this change, and that will help us to face it from a different perspective.
So now, being a leadership coach, do you find that super important in the corporate world? Do you see, because I know from my experience, there's been a lot of times that if there's changes coming, layoffs especially, or anything like that, leadership does not prepare the personnel for that. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Not preparing the people, that's the worst thing that you can do.
I agree.
Because definitely that's when people start getting out of the boat. And communication, and we talk a lot about this, communication is one of the most important things. As a leader, you have to understand when change is coming because you have the vision and you know where the organization is going. But more importantly, you have to understand what is the change, cascade the vision to be able to pass that vision. But you need to determine what are those key visionaries, what are those promoters that promote that decision, and your doers, and you have to involve them, because then they feel part of the change and they can help you to transmit the communication across the company. And
Yeah.
that's one of the most important things, communication. Because when you communicate to the team, you have to let them know why this change is important, and they to understand what's in it for me. And
Yeah.
when you sell that, that's when change, the people start to it. And more importantly, it's to be welcome to receive mistakes, how we talked before. People have to feel comfortable, especially in innovation. When you have to make sure that we prepare the organization for making sure that mistakes will happen, be resilient, but also prepare the emotional fitness across the team. So be able to, so definitely it's so important.
I agree. I mean, I have been part of organizations that downsized like that and, sent everything offshore, and they did not prepare the people. And I was very resentful. I was like, I'm out of here, whatever. And other times that I have been with companies that did the same thing, and they were very open about it, it gave me the opportunity to also be open with them. I've gotten good letters of reference for new jobs, all kinds of things. They were very proactive in it, where they actually would have, if you wanted, they would help you secure another job, either in a different division or with even, with another company, giving recommendations and things like that. So, change isn't always a bad thing, if you have a good support system also. I think that is huge.
Yes. I'm going to tell you, for example, when we were closing the company in Canada, the communication was open across the team, but more importantly, the people, the leadership, they were having communication with our customers to help us find job in a different position. And some of us were able to, the one that decided to work, they found a job. Other people decided, because it was around COVID, to prefer stay home because of their health situation. But the people that want to continue to work, we open doors for them. And that really create a change, as a belief system, that you don't have to necessarily do the things in a specific way, but you need to find a way that it's the best for the employees, even though the final decision is not what you want, but also you can make it easier for them, at least help as much as you can.
I think it's really important also for in a corporate setting, that if you are making changes that are not only going to affect your employees, but that will affect the customer, I think it's fair that you let the customer know that changes are going to be made, because through that, being open with your clients and customers, you can help build a much more trustful relationship with them, and give them the opportunity to come along with you to see what the changes are going to be good for them or not, but then also give them the opportunity to maybe say, what you're going to be doing isn't going to work for me, and find another solution to their problem. And it gives you a great opportunity to build more loyalty within your own brand of a company. Or a lot of people badmouth you and say, they totally screwed me over. So, really being open about change, I think, is huge, especially in a corporate setting.
Yeah, but not only that. For example, last week we were talking about our finances and stuff like that, and we are very resistant on manage our finances a different way. So how do you manage with your clients to be able to accept those changes and make those transition to really see themselves in a better way?
Well, it can be really difficult, and which is the perfect segue here, because next week, everybody tune in, because we are going to be talking about a holiday financial detox with all the bills coming in. But anyways, so it really depends on, there's a lot of changes that people have to make usually when they work with me. And most of it is mindset. And it can be really difficult for them to make changes, because when you're talking about spending issues, or needing to save and not spend as much, or things like that, it's a lot of people spend for different reasons. Sometimes it's a huge dopamine hit. Sometimes it is a self-esteem issue. Sometimes it's just, a habit. So it can be really difficult to get them to change their mindset. This is definitely a circumstance where they're not wanting to let go of what they have, if it's being used as a feel-good measure.
Yeah.
Not understanding that when you get your finances under control, you will feel more in control of your entire life, especially if they have an impulsivity when it comes to spending. And then you will not only feel more in control of your life and your finances, but you'll be able to see the progress of being able to have savings, start to invest, work toward financial goals. So it's a perfect example of letting go of what you think is good to make room for the great.
Yeah.
Especially if they're using it as a comfort measure. Same for, food, eating habits, any of those things. You have to be willing to let go in order to move forward. Change can be really, really difficult. And, in those circumstances, one thing that you really can do if you're resisting the change, especially if it's something that you're not choosing to change, is you have to learn to control what you can control, and accept what you can't control.
Yes. That's a good point. And I like when you mention about the emotional part that people the triggers about money or why they use the money. And that gave me curiosity. And when we're talking about change, our perspective about change, it's not something that it's always our decision of how we face it today.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about this when I was preparing for this podcast, and I say, we talk about this and how the environment affects us. So I think also the environment affects the way we see change, because as a kid, we are so curious about everything.
Yes.
And we try everything. And as we start growing, we start changing the way we see life and the way we accept everything. And I think the way the environment shapes us has a strong influence of how we see the change today. So it's just mindset, story that we put, that we can also reframe it.
I really like that when you talked about the curiosity part. And I think that if we can remember that curiosity of not just a childhood, because I'm kind of curious about a lot of things too. I've researched things that have nothing to do with my career, my business, anything, because I like to know things. But especially when it comes to change, if we can grasp that mindset of curiosity and start looking into it or delving into it more, I think that's a great way to look at it. Learning it as, a learning experience, a growth experience, instead of something that's being forced upon us. Maybe it will end up being best for us if we know more about it. I think that is a fantastic way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think that's it. But one important thing is that, for example, it has happened certain time in my life, and I don't know if that's normal. And let me ask you, I remember when I moved to Quebec, I loved the city, but I thought that I could easily get in my comfort zone. And then I moved to Toronto. And then after a period of time, I said, I'm getting too comfortable. And that's not necessarily what I want. Then I came here to the US, and my kids tell me, Mom, please stop. Really. But it's like, I see like growth and opportunity, and different things I have learned from different places. But sometimes I feel that I'm getting like kind of comfortable, and I really don't like that much before I feel like stagnant. And I don't know.
It's funny because I'm actually there right now. I was thinking about this today. This is where I'm at right now. This is the longest I have lived anywhere. I grew up moving a lot as a child with my dad's job. And so I kind of have gypsy blood in me, I think. I love change. I'm one of those weird people. And so I am at that point also where I'm ready for more change in my life. And when I get like this, I will even start rearranging furniture just to get some change in, Now, back in the day when I was dealing with money issues and, learning the hard way, I would buy new things to have new things to change, and that's not necessarily a good way to go, but I do see that in a lot of my clients too.
Yeah.
I need to change things up. I want something fresh and new. So spend money. It's not necessarily the way to go.
Yes. And maybe you mentioned a good aspect, because sometimes my kids and my husband, they used to fight, but the room was fine. Why did you change it? I don't know. I just wanted to see it different. I don't know if that's something about women that we're like that, but definitely sometimes I think in life, change brings excitement, brings possibility.
It can, but it can also bring a lot of pain.
And
sometimes when you think about relationships, I'm divorced. And so when you think of it in terms like that, it can bring a lot of pain, a lot of fear.
Yeah.
It's not always, change isn't always a good thing. A lot of people understand that. And I think one thing that's really important is, like, again, whether you decide to make the change, like if it's moving, there can be fear involved in that, and, fear of the unknown or whatever, or if it's, the breakup of a relationship, friendship, love relationship, whatever. It's really, really, really important to feel the grief and experience the grief and allow yourself to grieve the loss of what you're putting behind. Even if what you're going toward is better, there can still be those feelings of grief. And it's really important to feel that. And it's okay to feel that.
And there's always going to be, always, because you live in people, you live in your environment, you're making not just the change per se, but also you are going to change. So you live in yourself. And
that is huge.
Yes, that's something that it's hard sometimes, because you know that you're becoming another person the way that we're walking. And that's why it's so delicate, the perspective, and how when you're facing a change, that you really put everything in perspective, that you analyzed what I'm gaining from this, what I'm leaving behind, and accept both. And like you said, understand what you can control and what you cannot control, and focus on those things. There are changes that you can do just because you want to grow. There are others that you're forced to because of your circumstances. But independently, myself, I think it's better when I made the decision for the change that I wanted to make instead of being imposed. But even those ones that are imposed, or you decided based on your circumstances that have to be different, it's so important to have that self-awareness. So you can understand what you have, what you can bring to the table, and what do you need to let go, and spend some time reflecting and learning from those type of things.
Something that can be really hard too is when you're facing changes in your life, that a lot of times we bring it inward because we're feeling it, we're going through it. But if you can remember that this could also be affecting the people around you, and understand that they're going to be also living in some fear of the change. I have seen people who, especially like in couples therapy or something like that, or if one of a couple goes to therapy, the person who's not going to therapy is afraid that that person is now going to change and not be the same person, or not feel the same way about me when they have realization. So change can be, even if you're the one going through the change, it can affect other people. If you lose a job or change a job, or for those brave souls like the insane us who start an entrepreneurial, life, it can be really scary for people that are in our lives going, how are we going to continue? How are we going to maintain our life? So that is something else that can be difficult about change, is how it's affecting other people around us. And to stay cognizant of that.
Self-compassion for you and compassion for others around you when you're making those changes, because definitely they can impact. And that little bit of grace, and also being grateful.
Yes.
Because one thing is really, we will never stay the same way.
Even if you try.
Yes. Yeah. Even if you decided to stay the same way, you won't.
We can't.
Things are going to happen. Life happens.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's important that we have a positive mindset, even when it's hard. The situation, if you start looking for what I'm learning from this, why is God putting me into this? What is He teaching me? You're going to start taking those things in considerations, and it's going to make it not easier, but you're going to understand it better, and you're going to learn the lessons. And when we learn the lessons, then it's another step, because you have grown.
There have been many, many times that I am like, God, what are you up to? I mean, really, what are we doing here? But, I definitely try to live my life that where God leads me, I will follow. And there have been many times that I have really been curious as to where are you leading me? And it's funny because when I was going through it, I didn't understand. And I'm sure I'm very positive He is not done with me yet. But there are times now that I can even look back at the last 5 to 7 years and say, okay, all the changes that I went through, all the things that I did, I can see where they've led me now.
Yes.
So that hindsight definitely can help. And, like when you're saying it can be really difficult to go through these things, one thing that you can do is positive affirmations. Repeat to yourself constantly, I can handle this. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Or whatever positive affirmations that work for you. Because, some things work for other people that don't work for some, but that can really help. Just remind yourself that you've been through 10,000 other horrible things. You made it through okay. This can be okay too. And like you said, if you keep a positive idea about how this can be a good thing, what can I learn from it? How can I grow from this? It can make all the difference in the world. Mindset's huge.
Yeah. And one thing that sometimes we have to ask ourselves to understand our perspective in terms of change, in terms of our whole life. Sometimes we have to imagine how our life has changed because of that decision that we made many years ago, and where we are today. And we can also see the other spectrum. If I wouldn't made that decision, what would be my life? How my life would be? And those type of things help you to understand. Is sometimes the decision that has to be made, the changes that needs to happen.
That's actually a technique I use with my clients.
Okay.
Is to say, if you do these things that we're talking about and working on, how will it make a difference in your life? Think about what the future could be. Now, if you don't make these decisions, how's it going to look? If you just stay on the track that you're on, tell me what your life is going to be like 2 years from now.
Exactly.
So it really can put you in perspective.
Yes. And that answer these type of questions, focusing on the past decisions and your present, it will help you to understand if change is inevitable. So
absolutely.
If those changes that you made, if you have the strength, if you have the resilience, if you have the capability to support the things that are going forward, and that will definitely help you to change your perspective of your life and how you want to live your life.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. You need to reframe the perspective sometimes, and it can make all the difference. Why, especially if change is being made for you and it's not something that you are a willing participant in.
Yes.
If you can look at it in a positive way and really think about how it could benefit you, why live miserably through it all, and why be angry about it all if you can't change it?
Accept it.
Go with this.
And we thought that this topic was really important because last week we were talking about habits, but in order for you to create habits, change is important.
100%.
It's going to happen. And it's not who we are today. It's about the person that we want to become. And the only way that that's going to happen if we decided to make changes in our life and be resilient. And more importantly, accept those changes because we are growing. It's not the result. It's through the process of growing that's going to make us different.
Yeah. Well, I know that we said that next week we're going to be talking about doing a financial detox, but the week after that, we're kind of coming back around again to more of this topic. And we're going to be talking about growing your self-confidence. It's something along
fears.
Yeah. Overcoming fears and things like that, because even if you are on board with the changes you're making in your life and building new habits and reaching goals, there's going to be a time when you're like, what am I doing? I can't do this. I'm not good enough for this. And you are, and we're going to figure it out together.
One thing that I forgot to mention, your support system.
Oh,
Never forget about your support system.
It's huge. It's huge. And you know what? If you're thinking to yourself, I don't have a support system, I'm not near family, I don't have any friends, I don't attend church or a synagogue or temple or anything else, you know what? At the very minimum, there are Facebook groups. There's a million Facebook groups out there for you that are full of people that are going through what you're going through. So honestly, you are never, ever alone. You really aren't. You just search and you will find.
Yes. If not, join us in our Facebook group. And also in our podcast, Find Your Wise podcast. You can find us in all social media with that. And definitely we're going to be always willing to support and provide you with ideas based on the experience that we have already experienced.
Yeah, and the Facebook group is slowly growing. We're looking for it to grow more, obviously, so that we can live stream there. Also, we do put shorts out there. But as it gets bigger, we're going to start putting a little bit more content out there, not just necessarily videos, but other written content, things like that, motivators. So yeah, please join us at Find Your Wise Podcast on Facebook and any other social media that you can find. I think TikTok, yes, no, I think it's back up. I don't know, but we're there. Instagram, Spotify, all over the place.
So please join us and follow us, and just think about it. What that change made in your life, what change that you have made in your life has really changed the direction and having a different future.
Absolutely. Embrace your change, man. Embrace the thought of what could be better? What can I do to make this better?
Perfect.
Don't forget to like, share, and comment.
Yes. And share with someone that you understand that could help us. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.